The last time anyone saw Emily Carter, she was walking out of her night shift at Miller's Diner, the fluorescent lights buzzing behind her as she stepped into the cold Asheville air. It was November 12th, just past 11:23 p.m. The security camera caught her tucking a stray strand of blonde hair under a worn baseball cap, her duffel bag slung over her shoulder. She walked with purpose, heading toward the dimly lit parking lot. But then, nothing. Emily never made it home. Her roommate, Lisa Monroe, was the first to notice something was wrong. When she woke up the next morning, Emily's side of the room was untouched, the bed still neatly made from the morning before, her phone charger still plugged into the wall, and the sweater she always wore after work still draped over the chair. Lisa frowned, checking her phone. A dozen unread messages from the night before. "Lisa, are you off yet? Lisa, you okay? Lisa, call me when you get home." The unease settled in her stomach like a rock. Emily was never late. She never ignored texts, and she definitely never just disappeared. By 10 a.m., Lisa was calling Miller's Diner. The manager, Marcy, picked up, sounding frazzled. "She left after her shift, like always," Marcy said. "Security camera shows her heading to the parking lot. She didn't seem upset or anything." Lisa's voice cracked. "But she never came home." That was enough to send a cold wave of realization through her. By noon, she was at the Asheville Police Department filing a missing persons report. Detective Mark Calloway took the case. He had seen his fair share of missing persons, but something about Emily's disappearance felt different. There were no signs of a struggle, no indication that she had planned to run away. Her car was still parked in the lot, keys and all. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. But people didn't just disappear. Someone had to know something, and Calloway intended to find out who. Detective Mark Calloway sat in the dimly lit Asheville Police Department, replaying the security footage for the fifth time. The timestamp read 11:23 p.m. Emily Carter, still in her Miller's Diner uniform, stepping into the parking lot. She wasn't in a hurry. She wasn't looking over her shoulder. She had no reason to believe she wouldn't make it home. Then she was gone. No struggle, no hesitation, no sign of an abduction. Her car was still in the lot, keys in the ignition, like she had never even opened the door. So how had she disappeared? Calloway leaned back, rubbing his temple. The lot was poorly lit, and no other customers had been around. If someone had taken Emily, they had done it quickly and quietly. He had seen cases like this before, ones where the victim never returned. But something about this didn't sit right. A few hours later, a breakthrough came. A street camera at a nearby intersection had picked up a dark sedan pulling away from the diner at 11:25 p.m., just 2 minutes after Emily was last seen. The license plate was partially obscured, but it was enough. The car was registered to Todd Grayson, a 42-year-old mechanic with a record of domestic violence, not exactly a stranger to trouble. Calloway and his partner, Officer Ramirez, drove out to Todd's house, a rundown rental on the edge of town. The place reeked of cigarettes and stale beer, a stack of unpaid bills littering the kitchen counter. Todd opened the door, bleary-eyed, scratching his unshaven face. "We need to ask you a few questions about Emily Carter," Calloway said, his voice even. "Your car was seen near Miller's Diner the night she disappeared." Todd blinked. "Who?" "Emily Carter, 24 years old, blonde, works the night shift." "Never heard of her," Todd grunted, shaking his head. "And I wasn't near that diner. I was home all night." But when Calloway checked Todd's phone records later that evening, something didn't add up. He had received a call from a burner phone 1 hour before Emily vanished. Someone had called him, someone who didn't want to be traced. And Calloway had a feeling this was only the beginning. Lisa Monroe sat cross-legged on Emily's bed, staring at the untouched blankets, her mind racing. It had been over 24 hours since Emily disappeared, and the police still had no solid leads. The cops were treating this like a possible abduction, but Lisa wasn't so sure. Emily wasn't the type to get involved with dangerous people. At least, that's what she had always believed. But as she rifled through Emily's nightstand, her fingers brushed against something that didn't belong. A small, leather-bound notebook tucked beneath a pile of old receipts and gum wrappers. Lisa hesitated before flipping it open. Inside, she found page after page of handwritten notes. The handwriting was Emily's, but the words sent a chill down Lisa's spine. JS, meeting at 11:15, important. He knows more than he's saying. What if he's lying? Lisa frowned. Who the hell is JS? She grabbed her phone and dialed Detective Calloway. I found something, she said, voice trembling. 15 minutes later, Calloway was at the apartment, the notebook in his hands. He skimmed the pages, his brow furrowing deeper with every line. Did she ever mention anyone with the initials J. Jesk? He asked. Lisa shook her head. Not once. Before Calloway could respond, his phone buzzed. It was Ramirez. We've got a hit, Ramirez said. A bartender at the Rusty Nail remembers Emily from a few nights ago. She was there arguing with some guy in a gray hoodie. Calloway stiffened. Does he remember what the guy looked like? Better. We got him on security footage. An hour later, Calloway was watching grainy footage from the Rusty Nail's surveillance cameras. Emily sat at the bar, her arms crossed, clearly agitated. Across from her, a man leaned in, gesturing aggressively. His hoodie sleeve slid up just enough to reveal something on his wrist. A tattoo. 2 letters inked into his skin. JS. Lisa sat on the couch, knees tucked to her chest, staring at the glow of her phone. It had been 2 days since Emily vanished, and the silence was unbearable. She had spent hours scrolling through Emily's social media, searching for a clue, anything that might explain what had happened. Then, just past midnight, her phone rang. Unknown caller. Lisa's heart slammed against her ribs. She almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. With a shaky breath, she swiped to answer. Hello? At first, there was only silence. Then a low, distorted voice whispered through the speaker. She shouldn't have been digging. Lisa shot to her feet. Who is this? Where's Emily? A pause. Then, click, the line went dead. Her hands trembled as she redialed, but the number was blocked. Whoever it was, they didn't want to be found. Lisa wasted no time calling Detective Calloway. When he arrived, she played him the voicemail. He listened intently, his jaw tightening. The voice is altered, he said, analyzing the audio again. But the way he talks, his speech pattern, it's familiar. Lisa swallowed hard. You think it's Jason? Could be, or someone working with him. Calloway's mind raced. This wasn't just some random abduction. Emily had gotten involved in something dangerous, something that had made her a target. Using phone records, the police traced the call. It had come from a burner phone, but the tower pinged near an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Asheville. It was enough for a warrant. By 3 a.m., Calloway, Ramirez, and a team of officers arrived at the warehouse. The air was thick with mildew, the scent of old oil and rust clinging to the walls. Their flashlights sliced through the darkness. Then a noise. A shadow darted across the far end of the warehouse. Asheville PD, Calloway shouted, drawing his gun. Come out with your hands up. A figure bolted for the back door. Officers tackled him to the ground. Todd Grayson. In the corner of the warehouse, they found something chilling. A chair with rope around its legs. On the floor, a torn piece of fabric from Emily's uniform. But Emily herself? She was still missing. The warehouse reeked of mildew and rust, the cold air thick with dust as Detective Calloway and his team moved cautiously through the cavernous space. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, illuminating old crates, rusted machinery, and scattered debris. The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant sound of dripping water. Then a noise. A scuffling sound, coming from the far end of the warehouse. Calloway raised his weapon. Asheville PD, step out slowly, hands where we can see them. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, a figure bolted. A blur of movement streaked toward the back exit. Officers lunged. Ramirez tackled the man to the ground, pinning his arms behind his back. Got him, Ramirez grunted. Calloway approached, shining his flashlight on the suspect's face. Todd Grayson. His lip was split, his breath reeking of stale alcohol. But his smirk was what made Calloway's skin crawl. You're too late, Todd muttered, voice laced with amusement. Calloway clenched his jaw. Where's Emily? Todd chuckled, shaking his head. Man, you cops always think you're so damn smart. He leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper, but she's already gone. A chill ran through Calloway's spine. He turned, sweeping his flashlight across the warehouse. In the corner, something caught his eye. A wooden chair, rope still loosely tied around its legs. The rope was frayed, as if someone had been struggling against it. And on the floor beside it, a torn scrap of fabric from Emily's uniform. Lisa had been right. Emily hadn't just vanished. She had been taken. Ramirez pressed Todd harder. "Who are you working with? Where did you take her?" Todd let out a dry laugh, wincing as Ramirez tightened his grip. "You really think I'm the mastermind here?" he smirked. "I was just the cleanup guy." Calloway's stomach twisted. That meant there was someone else, someone who had orchestrated this from the start. Someone more dangerous. Detective Calloway gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white as he sped through the darkened Asheville streets. Ramirez sat beside him, phone pressed to his ear, barking orders to dispatch. They had a name. James Sutton, a former truck driver with a history of violent offenses, a man who had managed to slip through the cracks of the justice system time and time again. And now he had Emily. The GPS coordinates from his last known location led them to an abandoned motel just outside of town, the kind of place where no one asked questions, where rooms rented by the hour and broken neon signs flickered in the night. Calloway pulled up to the lot, killing the engine. The place was eerily quiet. A single light glowed from one of the rooms. Ramirez unholstered his gun. "Think she's in there?" Calloway nodded grimly. "Only one way to find out." They moved swiftly, flanking the door. Calloway pressed his ear against it, muffled voices inside. A man and a woman. "Emily." He motioned to Ramirez. "On his count. 3, 2, 1. The door burst open. James Sutton barely had time to react before Calloway tackled him to the ground. The man thrashed, but Calloway pressed his knee into his back, pinning him. "Don't move." Ramirez scanned the room. "Emily?" A choked sob came from the bathroom. Ramirez pushed open the door. There she was. Emily was curled in the corner, wrists bound, tears streaking her face. The moment she saw Ramirez, her breath hitched. "Please, you're safe now," Ramirez assured her, quickly untying the restraints. Emily collapsed into his arms, sobbing. James Sutton let out a low chuckle from the floor. "She would have been gone by morning," he sneered. "You got lucky." Calloway's jaw clenched. "No, you got sloppy." Backup arrived minutes later. Sutton was hauled into a squad car, his smirk gone. As Emily sat in the ambulance, wrapped in a blanket, Lisa arrived, tears in her eyes. She rushed forward, pulling Emily into a tight embrace. "You're okay," Lisa whispered. Emily clung to her. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again." But she had. And this time, she wasn't going anywhere.